Welcome to the Recommended Daily Value Podcast, your daily dose into the health and wellness world.
Welcome back to the Recommended Daily Value Podcast, where we dive into everything health, fitness, and nutrition related 5 days a week in 5 minutes or less. This podcast is brought to you by Umzu, and I'm your host, Tyler Woodward. If you're not already, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button, because today's topic of the day is whether or not you need to quit gluten. Gluten has become demonized for causing intestinal permeability, aka leaky gut, and the inflammation that ensues with leaky gut. So the proposed mechanism being that gluten activates a protein called zonulin, which regulates the tight junctions of the intestine. The tight junctions are what permit us to be able to absorb nutrients and substrates like amino acids or glucose from our food into our bloodstream. When gluten activates zonulin, it opens up these holes in the intestines, allowing more nutrients and other things to pass through. This is all well and good until something you don't want in the bloodstream makes it in there. Things like, gluten, starch, granules, bacteria, etc. Once these unwanted molecules make it into the bloodstream, our body launches an immune response or an inflammatory response to get them out, which is one of the reasons and likely the primary suspect as to why gluten is so inflammatory. That being said, surprisingly less than 1% of the population actually test positive for a gluten allergy and or has celiac disease, while a larger percentage of the population may be gluten sensitive. When people tend to refer to gluten, they tend to throw the baby out with the bathwater, forgetting all the modern day accessories commonly included in bread alongside with gluten, including things like fortified iron, synthetic B vitamins, gums, stabilizers, all of which we frequently add into bread and can cause problems on their own, each individually. It's even possible theoretically that some of these additives aggravate some of the same mechanisms or pathways that gluten does, so when you consume them together, it amplifies their effects. This makes the gluten seem worse, as we all blame the gluten since it's the obvious culprit, being that we generally have no idea what else is in the bread. Not to mention all the things that wind up in our bread unintentionally, not including all the things we put in there intentionally to make the bread what it is. Like the pesticide glyphosate, which has been repeatedly demonstrated to have an effect on our microbiome, with some believing that glyphosate causes gut dysbiosis or an imbalance of the gut microbiota. Now, to be clear, I'm not advocating that gluten is by any means a good thing, and I don't think anyone is. Which is why for thousands of years, we used a traditional preparation process of fermenting the wheat grains, which typically breaks down around 75%, if not more, the gluten in the bread, plus other anti-nutrients that can impair digestion. Let's face it. The commercially prepared bread you bought at the store or ate at your favorite restaurant is not the same as a loaf you carefully prepared by hand in your kitchen. While you may experience benefits from removing gluten from your diet, not everyone will. And even if some benefit from removing gluten, it might not be sustainable or worthwhile for many families to completely remove gluten from their diet, especially when sourdough reduces the gluten content in bread by over 75%. Again, gluten probably isn't beneficial in any way from a health perspective, besides, being delicious. But there are millions of other foods and lifestyle changes that you can make and reap similar, if not better, benefits compared to quitting gluten. At the end of the day, gluten is just a difficult to digest protein that causes problems in some people while being benign to others. If gluten bothers you, no matter what you do, quit it. And if it doesn't bother you, you're still probably better off quitting it. But hey, life is short. Personally, I went predominantly grain-free for the last few months and don't find the benefits being worthwhile enough to forgo many of my favorite foods. That being said, I do go out of the way to make my own sourdough and purchase very high quality flour to ease the effects of gluten has on my body. Well, that's it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit that subscribe button and to share with a friend. And remember, these opinions are my own based on my own research and experiences, and it's not medical advice. Until next time, be good.